In the fall of 2023, we decided to flip the script on the traditional town hall and hosted a listening tour. Today, we're going to look back and see what we've learned, what we'll do with the information collected, and give you an inside scoop on what we've got planned during the 2024 session. What surprised the representatives? What made the biggest impression? Let's listen in as we sit down with the representatives and hear what they have to say. Representatives, welcome, and thank you for sitting down with us. We're here in the People's House on the chamber floor, just days away from our opening session. We did something very different in the past couple of months. There was a listening tour that occurred. So let's get into the meat of that. Tell us, Representative Matsumoto, what was the genesis like of that listening tour?
This is something that we've wanted to do as a caucus for a very long time because we recognized that we weren't really taking the time to truly listen to people. We asked them to come here and testify, but we weren't going out and saying, what are the issues that you care about? What should we be introducing? So the whole idea is we went into the communities to listen to the people there going, what bills do you want us to introduce? And that's how we developed our caucus package this year.
That's right. And there was quite a buzz the evening. There was live music. We had food vendors. It was a very relaxed family feel. What were some of the things that stuck out to each of you?
Let me say that in the old days, the surveys were through the newspaper or through the other TV stations, and they're not doing that anymore. So essentially what we're doing is very imperative, and I hope we perpetuate it.
Yeah, so what was so neat about that is we actually did live surveys where they scanned a QR code, we asked questions as people were talking about things. It moved with the conversation. We asked questions that people were talking about. So that way it wasn't just this pre-planned thing. It was, hey, we're going to keep this conversation going, and the surveys were live on the phone. People could see it on the screen, and that was really neat.
That's right. And so for those of you who are unfamiliar, we had a very unique feature in the listening tour. We had interactive elements where we could get an exact temperature check in the room on that specific night. So we're going to do a little demonstration of that, if you will. So representatives, would you mind grabbing your phones out? We're going to give the people at home a little temperature check for us. While you guys are getting your phones out, go ahead and scan that QR code that we have on the monitor and take a look at this video on how exactly the temperature check worked. Hey, you guys, got the live feed going? Are we good? All right, let's hit it. Hey, aloha everyone. Thanks so much for coming to the listening tour. We'll begin shortly, but before we start, can I ask a favor? Now that you're here in person, we want to make sure that you are heard. So we've got an interactive survey only open to you guys here in the room. The idea is you tell us what you want to talk about by simply choosing a subject from the list. This will show us what the concerns are and what we'll focus on. So in the words of Jerry Maguire,
help me help you. Help me help you.
It's super easy. First, we're going to scan the QR code on the screen with the smartphone just like this. Hey, can I get that QR code looking thing? All right, okay, so I've got my phone, you know, the one like this. So open up the photos and the camera on your phone and scan it now. The camera will find it. A prompt will say, open in your browser. You see that? Now you choose your top concern. You'll only be able to choose one. I know, right? There's so many to choose from, but don't stress out. There'll be plenty of opportunities to discuss other concerns tonight. Remember, this first survey helps us take a temperature of the room tonight. It's possible that you won't get to your concern tonight. However, we'll be reaching out to you to get your thoughts. Not to mention, afterwards, all of the representatives will be here to speak to you personally. So scan the QR code on the screen right now. Oh, and the QR code is on each table too. Come on, it's so simple. Even Rep. Ward can do it. You guys doing okay back there? Yeah? Guys got it? Hey, you in the back. Scan the code now, your voice matters. Uncle, how you doing? You get him. Right on. Hey, anyone can do it. So go ahead and scan that code. We look forward to hearing from you tonight. For fun, here's a question to all of you, okay? So you know the routine. We're gonna hold our phones up and scan the code, and let's see what we get. Now, we've got the production team weighing in too to see instantly what the results are going to be. Let's take a look at the question. You've got a long day at session, it's late, but you're starving, okay? What are you reaching for? Go ahead and rank each of these options. We have pizza, tacos, plate lunch, leftovers at home. Let's see what the interactive survey looks like. As you can see, a lot of people are weighing in a plate lunch. Okay, that makes sense to me. All you Hawaii representatives over here going for the plate lunch, tacos, okay, leftovers at home. Everybody able to weigh in? Well, as you can see, this is the way that the interactive survey works. We could see the animation, and that's exactly what happens each night at the listening tour. The audience was able to weigh in with what they thought was the most important concern, and it was live results. So first place, plate lunch. I would have had to say that's my favorite as well. Second, tacos and pizza and leftovers at home. Very good. As you can see, the priority was to listen. Our surveys encourage people to speak their mind. We had an ongoing statewide survey, which anyone can participate in, and an interactive survey during the listening tour. Once we had a temperature check with a clear idea of the top 3 concerns in the room, we moved on to related questions on those topics with immediate results seen by everyone. Let's go through some of the survey questions and results. Our first question was, have you ever considered moving to the mainland due to the high cost of living? The results showed 62% saying yes. This is our statewide survey, and 38% saying no. Rep. Matsumoto, the lack of affordable housing is clearly a top of mind topic for most residents statewide. What is the House Republican Caucus doing to address this issue?
This is one of the top issues because it falls under cost of living as well. And so we have heard time and time again, we can't just afford a house. But we realized one of the biggest hurdles was being able to afford the down payment. And so one of the main things that we're doing is helping with down payment assistance. So there's already a program set in place. We're just looking to raise the limits because now the average cost of a house is between $900,000 and $1 million. Being able to have a higher down payment assistance, so it's pre-tax dollars, and this would help people immediately be able to help put that down payment and afford their first home.
We're going to go to another question that showed the top 3 issues that revolved around the state today. The top 3 issues involving that the state felt was of highest concern was number 1, weighing in cost of living with nearly 65%, government corruption 40%, homelessness 38%, and affordable housing, as we just spoke about, 28%. This next question is for you, Rep. Perrick. The second most common answer to the question was government corruption. Now, it's no surprise that you're a proponent for government reform. So can you speak to some of the reform proposals that the caucus will be addressing?
Term limits will advocate for representatives to be closer to the community. Oftentimes when people stay in office longer, there's sometimes a detachment between their connectiveness to the community because they've been in the government so long. They're now prioritizing their endorsements, they're prioritizing the system's motivation of government versus the constituents. When you knock on 8,000 doors and you hear freshly what the community wants, you're going to be advocating for the community. But when you're relying on endorsements to get reelected, there's oftentimes a disconnect between your attentiveness to the community needs. And so term limits basically phases out those politicians that are disconnected to the community.
With the exception of Representative Ward, of course. I've become closer and closer to the community, quite frankly. I agree with you, except there are some exceptions.
There are, and you're the best exception.
That's right. That's saying quite a bit if you're a proponent of term limits.
Yeah, I said it publicly, look, get rid of Representative Ward, pass term limits. And the fact that 72% of the people watching this want term limits, but one individual, and this is one of my pet peeves, the way we run this floor here, is that one person can kill a bill saying it's deferred and there's no vote. If he wants a bill to pass, he lets everybody vote. That is unfair. That is dictatorial and non-democratic.
And if I could add, by you being reelected without an opponent, that speaks to the community wanting you to be in office. So that's a good thing.
So we're looking forward to what the caucus is going to propose in the upcoming session. And we're going to go to a similar question.
Can I comment on this slide?
Absolutely.
Because when you've got almost the majority of the people saying the biggest thing is cost of living, we're not doing our job in this place if we're not paying attention to that. That irks me that we are getting paid to at least help the community lower the cost of living. What do we do every session? Up the cost of living. I mean, we got to be doing our job. And the Alice families, 48% of our people are asset limited, income challenged in earnings, which means the working poor. We got to do a much better job. So I feel very strongly about this. If this is cost of living, this floor should do none of that.
Well, you won't be surprised at what the next survey results will show, as we had a similar question but honed in on the community. What were the top 3 concerns facing our community? And Representative Ward, cost of living weighed in the highest at 55%. We had homelessness at 37%. And affordable housing still in the top 3 with 32%. We also had crime. That was a community concern. We saw it raised from the state level at 22% to 28% at the community level. So this question is for you, Rep. Alcos. In your community, how do you see the high cost of living affecting residents?
It's putting a lot of strain on our families. There's a lot of kids and keikis that's been trying to get into an organized sports, cannot afford the tuition fees, whether tuition fees is for football, basketball, and these kids are left behind. Families have to give up. These small little things affect them in their lives. And it's affecting our keikis. And it hurts. It hurts the cost of living in the state where I'm from. I mean, or in our community. I'm sure it hurts around our whole state.
That's right. I think what was so interesting as we went on this tour, it didn't matter what community we were in, cost of living was number 1. Some of the other things would shift in the 2, 3, 4, but cost of living consistently was the highest concern for people. And so I think that's something that we really need to take note. And this is something that our caucus has worked on for decades. And so I think it's going to be a main focus for us again this year.
It affects us as quality of life for our families, for our kids. Yeah. That quality are falling behind because our parents got to go get an extra job or figure out a way not to be there with our families, and it really holds an effect.
Well, thanks for weighing in on that. We're going to shift gears a little bit, and this next question has to do with starting businesses here in Hawaii. The question was, is Hawaii a good place to start a business? And I can draw your attention to the monitor as you see what the results were, that 38.8% strongly disagree, nearly 40% strongly disagree, 35% disagree, 22% neither agree nor disagree, and about 3% agree or strongly agree with the statement that Hawaii is not a good place to start a business. So I'm going to ask you, Rep. Ward, with all of your extensive background in entrepreneurial training, business academic research, and of course started businesses yourself, why do you think Hawaii is such an unfriendly state to start a business?
If you look at who's on your left and your right, you may see that 2 of us are business experience. But if you look at this whole body of 51 people, there is only a handful. The point is we all bring our own experience and bias. And until the small business community or the business community used to be a big part of the legislature, but now with the highest taxes in the nation, with the most unfriendly, we are the last in the nation for friendliness to start a business. Right. We are in a hostile environment, but it's the businesses, particularly the small businesses, that hire 70% of the people. So until we get business friendly, you can forget about a lot of this economic growth, which is another subject for diversification of the economy, which I hope we'll talk about. But right now, we just need more small business people. And if some are out there inclined to run, I would hope they would put forward their names.
And Representative Matsumoto, what do you see the caucus proposing to help small business owners?
Yeah, and I wanted to comment too, it's not a great place to start a business, but it's also a really difficult place to keep a business going. So like my family, we have an egg farm in Wahiawa. It's 114 years old this year, and we are struggling. And there's a lot of different issues that go into that, but this legislature has passed bills like a pretty high minimum wage, and for your small farmers especially, that's gonna put a lot of them in a really difficult spot. And so we have to look at, when we're passing these bills, how does it affect everybody as we're going forward? And there's a lot of those business tax bills that we talk about. People don't think about the tax portion because it's such a complex area, but it's really putting a strain. And so there's not as many jobs being able to be offered. Like for our family, we might have to lose a few workers because we can't afford to keep them there. And that's hard because they're like family when you only have 8 employees, right? And so that's something that's really, really important. And so the caucus really wants to work on helping to develop a pipeline so that we have students that are able to work in these jobs, but also work on the back end where we're looking at some of those business taxes, we're looking at the licensing, we're looking at all those different things. So when we have students that are prepared, there's actually jobs waiting for them. So often we'll start to get our students there, but then they graduate and there's no job waiting for them, or not a job that will pay them enough. And so that's something that we're really looking for as a caucus.
And the bill that we're going to be introducing this session is an Office of Entrepreneurship, which would create a special office under the governor that can focus on helping local businesses start up here in Hawaii and streamline them through that process of getting started and keeping their business, because most local businesses fail within that first 5, 10, 15 years. So we want to help people to make sure that they're on the right track.
And I want to add that before I became an elected official, I did 15 years of entrepreneur training. These are the guys who hire people. These are the guys who are creative, innovative. All the phones that you guys are carrying, that's entrepreneurial effort. FedEx came out of an MBA course a number of years ago. The point is we need more of that, and getting that Office of Entrepreneurship in DBED is going to be a blessing, because it'll identify people, and if they've got the funding and then some consulting, boom. And we've done it in the poorest areas of Africa, and it's really something that can work if there's political will to do it.
If there's a will.
We need more small businesses starting, local businesses.
Yes, local businesses.
Owners, and hopefully we can get tax break for them in starting their first 2 years or
That's
year,
right.
or something that we can think of
Yep.
in getting them a head start. Because how can you save money to open up your own business just by living in Hawaii now and just by paying your mortgage? It's really hard, but we need to give them an opportunity by figuring out some kind of tax breaks.
Especially builders, because we're about 60,000 units short.
Right. Along those lines, we do have a bill that's being introduced for Hawaiian homelands to start businesses for those who are on Hawaiian homelands. It will be a tax moratorium to let Hawaiian businesses start up tax-free for their first 5 years.
And that's not something this caucus came up with. This was Prince Kohio's vision
right.
of an independent, self-reliant Hawaiian community on a homestead. So we're finally, hundreds and some years later, getting on with what Prince Kohio wanted to do.
Amen.
It would help keep our local families home instead of going back to the mainland.
So Rep. Alcos, along those lines, we actually did have a question that asked if residents had ever considered moving to the mainland due to the high cost of living. And the results show that 62% said yes, 38% said no. So Rep. Perrick, I'm going to ask this question to you. This is a topic that hit close to home, right? You have siblings who unfortunately moved out of the state due to the high cost of living. And so what do you think about these findings?
They're reflective of what people believe and think, whether it's Kapolei, Mililani, Kaneohe, or elsewhere. People don't want to be challenged their whole life. They want to live in a community where they can come home and think to themselves, I've got a paycheck to buy the groceries, to buy my kids toys for Christmas. I don't have to worry about it. My sister and her family moved to the mainland because it's cheaper there. They bought a house, I think, for like $200,000. That's really hard to do in Hawaii. And they've got 4 kids. And so I hope that someday we can make Hawaii affordable and she'll come back here with all those kids.
That's awesome. So let's look a little bit more specifically at the districts, and you would see very similar results, many of which opting to move out of the state due to the high cost of living. And so Representative Ward, one of the most surprising survey results is how many Hawaii Kai residents actually weighed in yes, that they would move out of the state. So what do you make of this, Rep. Ward, especially?
Okay, guys, the stereotype has been broken. We are as bad off as everybody else. We just have to work harder to pay more bills. That is a very telling thing, because social science says that there's push and there's pull. I think some people maybe in different parts are being pushed out, whereas this one is like, hey, I can get a, $200,000 house. I mean, what can you get now? Even probably a shack or a garage for that amount of money. So there's a pull, and I think the people of Hawaii Kai, who in 96825 are the highest educated people, this is a sign that this body should wake up and get the cost of living down by whatever means that we need to be done.
And reflective of a district that has the second highest income per capita. So, that's saying a lot.
Exactly. It's saying that it's affected everybody everywhere, and no one is immune to it. That means this is a message that you guys better act. You're not doing your job.
And so Representative Matsumoto, as you had mentioned earlier, during the listening tour, you were really able to listen to the needs of the community, potentially introduce bills that address those needs. So the cost of living, again, is on everyone's mind. What bill specifically is the caucus going to propose to address this?
What was so interesting about the listening tour is when we were there, we were able to hear from people and what their thoughts were. And what was really neat is our caucus has introduced for the last, I would say, 2 decades, a bill to eliminate the general excise tax on food and medical services. And what was so neat is we actually had a few people stand up at the listening tour and suggest that idea. And it was just kind of that affirmation of going, hey, we are moving in the right direction. This is what people want. And that's something that our caucus will continue to push, because if you eliminate tax on food and medical services, those are necessities, right? That's gonna help people immediately, right? Sometimes we try to do all these really complex tax things or a tax credit here and you have to apply for it. But if we eliminate the GET on food and medical services, that's something that people don't have to think about. It's just when they go to the store, it will be immediately helping them. When they have to go to the doctors, that's going to be immediately helping them. And so that's something that we're going to continue to push really hard this year, because that's what the people of Hawaii need.
And hopefully there'll be some impetus from the governor's office, who put it in last year, but everybody pushed back so quick. We said, oh, we can't do that. But the public, they're saying, hey, guys, go for it. So hopefully we'll do a double teaming on that.
Absolutely.
There are several states that don't have state income tax, and that's beautiful. Imagine going to work, sweating, coming home and knowing that all of your money wasn't taken by the government, or part of it wasn't. That's a good thing. We don't need state income tax in Hawaii. Our budget is $22 billion. New Hampshire's around $8 billion. They have about the same population, and they don't have state income tax. If they can do it and their education results are better than ours, they have less homelessness than us, they have cheaper houses than us, we can do the same thing.
And so again, our next question, totally related to cost of living, is going to be about economic diversification. And the question was, if Hawaii were to diversify its economy, which sector should be its main focus? The results showed agriculture at 48%, high tech coming in next, 22% manufacturing, television and film, and pharmaceutical and other. So Rep. Alcos, as you can see from the results, we have a lot of alternatives that can increase our job market. Is that correct? Are there any bills that you see the caucus proposing as far as diversification of the economy goes?
Yes, the K-12 bill to from high school, taking them straight into the workforce. As the kids going out there, and then now they have college bills that they got to pay for, college debt they got to try to handle it, and at the same time moving out of their house and trying to have affordable living. This would help these kids have credits in school while they're in school, don't have to pay that much money in college, and straight to the workforce and help them to get back on their feet. So this is the bill K-12 to the pipeline. Yeah.
And Representative Matsumoto, as you can clearly see, agriculture is being recognized as a solution. How can we make this happen?
I think what the state really needs to do is to, again, look at how we approach businesses, because our farmers, they're small business owners. And I think we often forget about that. We go, okay, we got farmers, we've got our small businesses, but they are small business owners. And so we got to look at that. And the other thing is, I think government's role really is in infrastructure. We have a lot of great land on the North Shore, but there's no electricity and there's no water. And so what I think government's role really can be is helping to provide that infrastructure so that the farmers can come in and then be less oppressive when it comes to some of those taxes or some of the regulations that we put in. And that's what's really going to help build our food sustainability. 15 years now, and the number still is around 90% of our food is imported. That pretty much hasn't changed, and we've been talking about it this whole time. And so we have to look at the issue a little bit differently.
Can I comment on this slide? Because I'm on the agriculture committee, and the demographics of the farmers, surprising guys, 60 to 65 average age, income 25 to 50,000.
Wow.
To say that we're going to get the young people to go out and become farmers, I think is a bit like we're going to be self-sufficient in food. I think it's a bit of a political ploy. 48% saying agriculture is the one. I want to go down to number 4, television and film. We should be the Hollywood of the Pacific. We're almost at $1 billion right now. Did you know that? $1 billion. And guess who's beating us? Georgia and Kentucky, because they allow a tax credit higher than ours, of which if we want an immediate thing, all the good talent that we've got here, we should be the Hollywood of the Pacific, clearly. But it's only 12% right there.
And what's amazing is when we talk about that pipeline, we actually have the pipeline. I am a graduate of the University of Hawaii's Academy for Creative Media. I have my film degree, but I came out and there's not always a lot of job opportunities. And we we have the training for our local kids to be able to go into this field. UH West Oahu has a beautiful beautiful
Just
new
opened
campus.
up.
Oh, it's,
Yeah.
I went in and I was so jealous. I go, I wish I had this when I was in school. But we had that pipeline put in place. Taking away, adding to that tax credit would make so much sense, because there's films now that are based in Hawaii that aren't even shot here, because we're getting a little more expensive to do business here. And so I think that's something that we can make a huge shift and have great high-paying jobs for our local families.
So that's Kona coffee not made in Kona. They're actually saying that Hawaii film, but it made outside of Hawaii?
There are films based in Hawaii that have been shot in other places, yes. And with AI, right? That's changing things too.
AI.
So there's going to be a huge shift. So we have to make sure we're moving with the times, and we're not just going to rely on, our beautiful scenery and backdrop like we used to years ago to have people come and do film here. We have to innovate, and we have to make sure we have an amazing film studio that people can shoot at, right? Sound stages and all those different things.
What I see here is the fact that people want more food grown locally. I think folks realize that most of what's at your grocery store is 90% imported. And that's scary. If war breaks out, if something happens to the shipping industry, we have about a 2-week supply of food locally. We have to grow more food locally and use our God-given lands to grow food for local families.
The key is competition.
Yeah.
For us to compete with California agriculture is really tough, but we went to Mahipono in Maui. We've got lemons that are competing on the world market with lemons from Mexico. Those kind of special niche products, I think it will go. But if in terms of general ag, it's really a tough road to hoe.
Not the sugar days again, for sure.
Well, I grew up on a plantation, and we had different rules on building our homes back then. Our rent or mortgage was probably $1 a month or $5 a month. We got to figure out a way to get plantation homes back to agriculture and see how these plantation workers or these farmers can afford a place to live, and then we can build towards that area. But if they have to compete with the market right now and trying to find affordable living, it's going to be hard.
Case in point, we can't even get the DOE to agree to buy local food. I mean, they'll say so much, we're saying 30%, they can't make it, and now we're saying 50%. So there needs to be a political will to implement that agricultural preference for diversification of the economy.
All of the conversation is absolutely fantastic, because it just further validates that at the listening tour, the state spoke, you listened, and now you're addressing it with the upcoming caucus package and what's happening in the upcoming session. So our next question is going to shift gears, because again, the state and the community spoke about crime, which is on everyone's mind, increasing here in Hawaii. And the question was, do you think our state is too soft, fair, or too tough on crime? As you can clearly see, 84% resound with too soft. So I'm going to direct this question to you, Representative Garcia, as crime being a statewide concern, especially on the West Side, right? You recently held a town hall about personal protection. And so what were some of the takeaways? Tell us more about that.
Well, that town hall was much needed because we've seen an uptick in crime on the West Side recently, but not just crime, violent crime. Stabbings, shootings, dead bodies, drugs involved. A 19-year-old boy was stabbed a 24-year-old boy was stabbed 19 times at Kapolei Skate Park. And that was the second stabbing in 1 month there. So violence has really increased drastically in West Oahu. So we had the town hall meeting, and you know what? People want to know what their rights are. How can we arm ourselves to protect ourselves? Because more and more we've seen robberies, houses being burglarized in the homestead areas too, which is not normal. So people are very alarmed by what's taking place statewide, and they want to know their rights to arm themselves.
Face the facts, though. We are 500 police officers short on Oahu,
alone,
not mentioning the neighbor island. The point is, we have to put our money where our mouth is, because clearly your story is horrific.
That's right. So along those lines, and Rep. Garcia, the follow-up question would have to be, what is the caucus going to do to address responsible gun ownership?
Well, we do have that bill that's being reintroduced again this year, and that's Stand Your Ground. People love this bill. As we're out there on that listening tour, people kept talking about Stand Your Ground. It's an important bill. If your life or your family's life is in imminent danger, you have the right to use lethal force to protect yourself and your family. It's common sense, and our caucus stands for Hawaii's families.
So speaking of crime, drug use is on the rise, and our next survey question is going to address this big topic. We asked the question, should the state legalize recreational marijuana? This is a very contentious topic, of course, but I want to hear what you all think. Notice Hawaii Kai, 92% say no, versus the West Side, 55% say yes on the West Side, but yet 8% in Hawaii Kai say no. Representative Ward,
What's going on
tell
in Hawaii
us,
Kai?
debunk more stereotypes, if you will. No, what's your
Kai may be the
stance?
anomaly, but look, I'm working with Prosecutor Alm on trying to get this issue, following his 10 points on his Star Advertiser editorial. The point is, we're going to numb and dumb down our young people. On my radio show, our radio show, the Perry and Price Garcia Ward show, Capital Convos, I said, is there any necessity to legalize recreational marijuana? Please call in if you cannot find marijuana any place at any price in your neighborhood. No one has ever called in. I've had the challenge for 3 weeks. The point is, this is a redundancy because we think, some people in this body think, oh, we're going to have a windfall of money. That is a bunch of crap. What they do is put in the money, but then they back out the money for those places for education and other things. So this is a shibai. And the other thing is, right now going on, 80% of the marijuana supply is coming from the black market. Colorado and California have proven that. The cartels have come in, they're growing it, and they're basically taking over the, quote, subsidiaries or the dispensaries. And also the Chinese are coming in and growing marijuana, and all the water that it takes is sucking up from the Colorado River, and they've always had a problem. My point is, there's more headaches with this than, we've already got marijuana. Nobody, if you do get a ticket, it's like a parking ticket. So this is like a solution in search of a problem. And this is not the solution that we should be doing. I feel very strongly about that. It looks like I represent my people in Hawaii Kai.
And so for our representatives that represent the West Side, can you guys weigh in as to why these results are so differing?
I appreciate the diverse perspectives on this issue. At the same time, my community has responded in a survey that they don't want recreational marijuana legalized. It has increased crime in states like Colorado. And so knowing that we're on the topic of decreasing crime in the state of Hawaii, I'm going to vote no against legalizing recreational marijuana.
For myself, on our West Side, marijuana seems like it was always easy to get. Just like going to the store and buying a cigarette. People can just get marijuana right off the streets, and as people smoking it, it's like it's natural in our community having marijuana around a party or at the beaches or someplace that you go. It almost seems like secondhand, but that's a bad thing that's happening. That shouldn't have been that way, and we should not have been that access to drugs and people thinking that it's illegal for our kids, our keikis, our community. Now, I disagree again with that, but it's what the West Side is growing up at their backyard, and this is what our families are. Hawaii Kai, probably not. That's not their backyard. On the West Side, that might be our backyard. Our neighbors might be growing it in their backyard, and it's kind of like making it like it's legal. But I disagree with marijuana. I don't want to be driving on the road, somebody stone, and end up killing my family or someone else's family. It's going to lead and alter the mind, and again, I'm against marijuana.
And speaking of secondary smoke, I go jogging 3 nights a week. In some places that I go by regularly, I gotta suck in the marijuana because it's so widespread everywhere.
I better drug test you now. To comment on that, I don't think that's accurate to be reflective of the total West Side, but like Rep. Alco said, it was normal growing up, having it all around us, and so it wasn't seen as this evil drug per se. I do want to say that, a large part of Hawaii's mental illness problem today, all the homeless who are strung out, chronics, on drugs, A lot of that was because in the 1980s and 90s, there was green harvest, and that knocked out a bunch of all the marijuana, and they turned to meth. The meth epidemic here in Hawaii has just gotten so bad, and it's ruined a complete generation of people. To legalize this for recreational purpose is not good. Not good for society. It's not good. In fact, I just ran a survey in my district, Kapolei Ho'opili Ewa. About 65% so far said we're against legalizing it recreationally.
I agree with medical.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, medical, no problem.
For sure.
I mean, strictly, yeah, I'm hoping someday it'll get into the pharmaceutical. Go to the Longs, go into CVS, Walgreens, you get your marijuana from there. If it's clearly medical, it should be processed and sold such.
What's so interesting at the legislature is when you look at the bills from like a macro perspective, we've been really focused on eliminating flavored tobacco and vaping because it's going to affect our kids. On the exact same year, we're looking to legalize marijuana, which in my mind is going to do the exact same things that we're fighting against with the vaping and the flavored tobacco. So often we look at these individual bills and people look at them by themselves, and you have to take a step back and look at the big picture and going, those two things contradict each other. It doesn't make sense. And so that happens with a lot of things at the legislature, and we need to look at that as we go through. And the public, I think, needs to take a step back and look at that as the bills are going through the legislature.
You ask a question. Does the government want to be the drug dealer instead, right? And make the money
Medical.
and take away for the financing? And if they legalize it, yeah.
Not worth the risk.
Crazy. Not worth the risk of any of our keikis.
Well, hopefully Prosecutor Alm is going to be on the educational path as soon as the session starts.
And what's interesting is I have the opportunity, I'm a part of an organization, Women in Government, and I have a good friend who's a senator from Colorado who voted to legalize marijuana when that vote came up. And we had a candid conversation, and she goes, if I had to make that decision again, I would not have voted for it.
And that's where learning from people's experience, and we've got Colorado and California, if we learn from them, we wouldn't be doing it either.
If I can ban cigarettes and vaping, that would be awesome too.
And one of the most outstanding open mic questions that I recall was a gentleman from Mililani. He asked the question, what can we do as residents to help you in the session, referring to you representatives? So Rep. Matsumoto, do you want to maybe respond to that? What can the constituents do?
When he asked that question, I go, that's my favorite question, because I think that's the most important thing on the how to get involved. And I always say, testifying is so, so important. And we have wonderful videos that our caucus has made on, takes you step by step on how to testify. But the reason it's important is I have sat on a committee where we've had some really important bills and not one person submitted testimony. And it's so essential, especially if it's an area you work in or it's your expertise. For example, I sit on the Transportation Committee. I don't have an extensive background in transportation. I rely on people to let me know how those bills are going to affect them. And so getting involved, testifying, signing up for the Republican Report. If you go to hawaiihousegop.com, we send out a newsletter every week of the, kind of those controversial or those top bills going through the session. We want to hear from the public so we can make better decisions that reflect what they want.
And if people are shy to go in person and testify, we are now also online, which means everybody goes into the internet and just kind of rages with all of their keyboard. Well, this is the chance to do it for bills with a substantive difference, because not everybody reads their total testimonies, because we don't get it until 5 minutes before the committee, which is part of the screwy part of this rules. But it's where testimony means a whole, like Representative Matsumoto said, depending on those who are putting it in, they are educating those people on the committee.
And the bill moves through several committees. So I will even go back and look at another committee's testimony. So we have the ability to go online, look at that testimony when we're looking at bills, whether we want to vote yes or no on something. So it really makes a big difference because we can go back and look. And so that's something that's really, really important. And what's been great is our caucus actually put bills in for many, many years to have remote testimony to help all of our neighbor islands. And it took COVID to actually make it happen. So what we wanted actually just came out naturally, unfortunately, in a not wonderful way. But now you can Zoom. One of my favorite first times is I was sitting in the Transportation Committee, and there was a gentleman from Molokai crouching in the bushes in full camo with his phone testifying on a bill. And I go, if that's not access, I don't know what is.
That's right. And so the Hawaii House representatives, all of you guys have actually responded to that gentleman's question with creating a video on just how easy it is to testify. So take a look at what we created. A valuable way to be heard is through testifying here at the Hawaii State Capitol during committee hearings where bills are voted on. The life of a bill relies on the testimony of citizens just like you. Let me show you how you can be a part of the process. The first thing to do is register on the capitol.hawaii.gov website. You will see at the very top of the webpage a login or register. Then log into your account. Once a bill has a hearing scheduled, you will be able to submit testimony. Check a bill hearing status under the Participate drop-down and choose Hearing Notification. This will give you the schedule. And you know what? There are multiple ways to testify here at the Hawaii State Capitol. First, you can come to the hearing in person and give testimony in conference rooms just like this one right here. Simply register to testify. However, if you don't register, you can still give testimony after those who are registered. Aloha, I'm Racine, and I'm here to testify on a bill. So what if you can't get to the state capitol in person? The good news is you can still testify remotely via Zoom. Plus, it carries the same weight as being here in person. Also, you can watch hearings live via the Hawaii House of Representatives YouTube channel, and that's anywhere you have online access. Are you stuck at work?
Hey, where's that report?
Got it. At home? All right, who ate my cheesecake? Headed off island? Or even at the beach while you're working on your tan. Woo, can't beat this. Another option is written testimony, which can be submitted up to 24 hours prior to the scheduled hearing. This is to make sure the representatives have your testimony before the hearing begins. This is so beneficial in making decisions. And it's important to note that anything that you submit is public record and can be viewed at any time. So here's how to testify. Log in to the State Capitol website. Towards the top of the page, there are drop-down menus. Choose the Participate drop-down and select Submit Testimony. Type in the bill number you are looking for and click Continue. Type in your full name. Please note that if you plan to give testimony virtually via Zoom, your Zoom name must match the name you enter here. Choose your position. Do you support or oppose this bill, or do you only want to make a comment? Next, you will choose if you are testifying as an individual or on behalf of a government agency, organization, or a business. How will you be testifying? You can choose in person, via Zoom, or written testimony. Please note you can submit a written testimony to accompany an in-person or Zoom testimony. Attach your written testimony document or write your testimony in the provided text box right then and there. Once you've submitted your testimony, you can either save progress or submit. Once you hit submit, you cannot edit it, so be sure you're satisfied with your written testimony. Note the hearing date and time and be ready to participate in person or remotely. Your testimony helps decide the fate of a bill. The most important thing is that you're contributing to your community. After all, the government works for you. So please get involved in helping us live out our state motto, Ua mau ke ea o ka aina I ka pono. The life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. So in closing, I have a question for each of you. Is this the end of the listening tour? Do you have any final thoughts or comments?
This should be the beginning of a listening tour to be institutionalized every year. I mean, in terms of, asking people to come to testify, they want us to go out to them. In fact, one of my takeaways of this tour was, hey, you guys actually listened to us. You actually did the technology of taking the votes through the screen was very impressive. So I think we are onto something. And I think some people in this building don't answer emails or phones. And this is part of what we as a representative need to not guarantee, but reach out to the people. And a listening tour has been an excellent way of doing that.
Having them to get out and seeing people that believe in them, getting their families to vote, having more voters out there and having more conservative belief in this Capitol and can stand on good values. You know, I'm not saying the Democrats are bad. I am saying that we just need more conservative values and great-hearted people in our capital, and having them to believe in the capital. Because back in the days, I didn't really care about politics. Until now, in my age, I finally hopefully see someone that's doing their job and someone that really want to represent their state and community. And hopefully we give that life. And I'm glad that we're going out to the public into different areas and showing that we care. And I think that's awesome.
And 5 of us show up and they say, oh my goodness, there's only 5 of you and you all show up and you're listening? I mean, that's impressive. They were really impressed.
I agree. It was a great tour. Like Rep. Ward said, this is just the start. It's something that should go on every single year. We are a caucus that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. So we should be engaging with the people.
Agreed. We should have it our goal that the constituents would know that we love and care for them. And one of the ways we can express that is by showing up and asking them, what are your thoughts? And hearing them, and then providing empathy and feedback after they share with us their thoughts.
And each of us have our individual town halls in our district. We've been doing that forever, but there's something different when we come as a group and saying, we're here to listen in order to put bills in. We're not just here to listen or see if you have a problem and okay, we'll kind of try and find an individual solution. We're here to try and bring about greater change, systemic change. And so I think that was what people were encouraged about, that it wasn't just an individual, but it is a group, it is a movement. And it was great. I had people, we were only able to do 4 stops this year because it's our very first year. I had people from other communities call our office, can we have the listening tour? I had Neighbor Island members calling, can we have the listening tour here? And like Rep. Ward said, this is just the beginning, because this is how our Republican caucus is taking the needs of the people and putting in bills for the people.
So what are your thoughts on a mid-session
I think that's a great idea that we keep making ourselves available to the people and listening and keeping that technology so they can vote, so it'll be a guideline for our votes.
And what's great about a mid-session listening tour is it's a little bit different of a feel. It's not what bills are we going to put in, it's what do you think about what the legislature has introduced this year? What is your feedback on what we're voting on right now? And so that's what's going to be really fantastic about a mid-session listening tour.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think that was a really great opportunity to recap all of the data that was collected and something for everyone at home to look forward to seeing going into the new session for 2024. So thank you so much, representatives. Thanks so much for joining us in this insightful conversation as we head into the 2024 session. And really the question is now to you, the citizens of the state of Hawaii. Will you make your voices heard? Remember, this is your government run by we the people, and there are many ways to get involved. Here are a few things that you can do right now. Take the survey, adding your voice to the conversation. Register on the state capitol website and be ready to testify and track bills that concern you. Connect with your state representative and let them know what's important to you. For more information about the representatives and what we stand for, visit HawaiiHouseGOP.com. From the Chamber of the People's House, thank you for watching. Until next time, aloha.